It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. That's how Charles Dickens opens A Tale of Two Cities, and it's an appropriate opening for this video, which is A Tale of Two Colonies. This hive is my largest hive. I call it Taj Mahal because I built it big, and I built it with lots of features. It has a ventilated roof, it has thick walls, it has a space at the bottom for pest control trays, ventilated bottom, and can house up to 3 colonies. Right now it has 2, separated by a divider, so these are 2 independent colonies. And as you can see, the one on the left is much more active than the one on the right. Both of these colonies are splits from my original colony, which was trapped out of a tree about 1.5 miles from here. Both colonies became queen right, and they both became pretty strong. They were both equal colonies until I had a major die-out of the colony on the right. Those bees, I still don't know exactly why they died out so suddenly. I suspect what may have happened is that wherever they were foraging, they may have gotten into maybe somebody sprayed pesticide on the flowers that they were foraging. It may have been a lawn of clover that somebody sprayed for mosquitoes or whatever, but they had a sudden die-off, and they've never really totally recovered from it. So today I'm going to do an inspection on both of these hives. The one on the left, they're doing strong. I don't have any real concerns or anything that I'm looking for, but just for comparison, I want to look and see how they're doing and how they're building out in preparation for fall and winter. And the one on the right, I kind of want to make sure of their status, make sure that they seem to still have an active queen, and if there are any particular problems, maybe I can make a plan. So let's take a look inside. So here we are, ready to open up the hive. And first I'm going to look at the strong colony, which I believe is arguably my strongest colony right now. And then we'll look at the weak colony, which is probably my weakest colony. And I'm looking at the strong colony first because there's less suspense there. I expect they're doing well. Don't know how much they have built out, but it's just kind of a status check on them. And we'll see how things are going. Then we'll look at the real question, which is how is our weak colony doing? Are they, do they have brood? Do they still have an active queen? They have had fairly regular traffic at the entrance, but in fact increasing a little bit over the last couple of weeks. This time of the year they're not building up a lot of brood like they would be in the spring, so I'm not expecting that, but it just hasn't been much of an increase in terms of numbers that would help to maintain or grow their colony. So we'll see how they're doing and see if there's any plan of action we might need to make going forward. So let's open it up and see. Now this hive does have cover boards, which is not typical of the Layens hive. This was originally built to be a double deep hive using Langstroth frames and Lazutin frames. And for those who aren't sure of the difference or haven't heard of Lazutin, I'll refer you back to a video that I made a couple weeks ago describing the differences between those three types of frames, the Langstroth, Lazutin, and Layens. So this was originally built to take the frames the length of the Langstroth frames, and then after I had the whole hive built, I was convinced to convert to Layens. So that gave thicker walls on the hive, which should help with overwintering, and will provide some insulation for the bees and make it a little nicer for them. So, and adapts it so that we can use the Layens frames in here. Quite a few bees hanging out there. You can see I pointed this out before. It's always kind of fascinating to me how they glue everything together with propolis. They're very efficient and effective about that. And opening up just enough to give me room to work here. And I think actually these, what do I have? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, I have 10 frames in here right now. In a past check I had added some empty frames, I believe 2 on this end and 1 on the other end. Don't know if they've built those out yet. We'll see how they're doing. I'm making that little mark across the top so that as I put the frames back in, I know that I have them oriented the same way as I took them out. I'm going to push these frames to the side and start working from the opposite end, just because I want to see first if they've built out on this last frame, and also I think it'll disturb them a little less than if I'm opening up and working from this end towards the other end. I don't know, may make no difference. Yeah, they've got that built out nicely, almost all the way down to the bottom of the frame. So they've got, put this where you can see it, they've got a little bit of honey towards the top there, got some nectar at the top. Interesting, they've got some drone cells, which are larger cells towards the bottom. But I don't see any brood in here. We got on the other side, got some more honey there, got some more drone cells towards the bottom. The drone cells are just larger because the drones themselves are larger and require more space to develop. So that's great that they're getting that they are building. I am actually going to take this frame second frame. I can see honey at the top. It's got good weight to it. Yeah, we got some pollen stored in there, got some honey at the top, got some nectar in there, and there in the middle of the frame we have some capped brood, so that's great. More honey, more capped brood, more nectar. Not seeing. I'm not seeing larvae in this one. We're going to be looking for some larvae as we go in. But we do have some capped brood there. Young bees not yet emerged. So, they're working. Alright, so we've got kind of the same story. They got a little bit of wonky comb here. I'm not too concerned about that. They do have, I see larvae, uncapped larvae on this one. They've got some capped brood down towards the middle. They got honey at the top. You can see that nice strip of honey at the top. And that is all honey that they will use for their winter reserves. I see some pollen stored in there. Got some nice yellow pollen in there. Taking a quick glance around, see if I can see my queen. Not seeing her. We got lots of bees on this side. Let's see what we got going on. They're just covering that frame. I can hardly see what's in there. I do see some capped brood. See if queen might be over here with all the party going on. Yeah, we got pretty good capped brood on there. Seeing a little bit of larvae on this side, not yet capped. Some young larvae out towards the edges. That's really nice. So they are still growing, or at least maintaining their numbers. Look out, bee. Alright, they made a quick scan for the queen. You can see on these frames have wires running down vertically, and you can see the bees aren't crazy about building out on that wire. Now the wire that I used is it's a plated wire. I have heard that they may like stainless wire better. What I have now to build my frames with is stainless, so in the future that might improve, but otherwise they tend to avoid building on that wire unless they have to, so it's kind of interesting. First thing I did is I picked this up. This was the dark side of the frame. I was looking to see if the queen might be on here. Not seeing her. I am seeing capped brood on the right side there. Maybe my arm's in the way, but on the right side we've got some pretty good capped brood. Lots of bees tending to that. Not that the capped brood requires much tending, but they're kind of busy over on this side. And got some pollen stored over on the left, and then they've got a nice band of honey across the top. Got several flies that are interested in these. For some reason, flies are always trying to get into this hive. I guess they like the honey too. The bees tend to chase them away pretty well. So on this one, again on that same side, now it's on the left, but they've got pretty good capped brood there. Some pollen on the other sections, and trying to get a little light behind me that I can look in there, see if I see any eggs, which I am not yet, but I see good pollen stored up in there. And of course the honey across the top. So that's looking nice. We got a little burr comb on this edge. I may take that off just to clean things up. I can take that off without damaging the other comb, so I'll take care of that. We'll put this back. All right. Again, similar story. We've got honey across the top, got some capped brood down towards the central right portion of this frame, got some larvae in there. I don't know if I'm going to try to hold this up, and yeah, we're not going to get close enough with the camera mounted there, but I can see larvae in several cells through there. And again, I'm going to look, see if I can spot any eggs in there. I am not, oh I do, right in the middle. I'm spotting a pretty good amount of eggs in there, so that is awesome. The eggs just look like little bitty grains of rice at the bottom of the cell. This comb is a little darker, which tells me that there's been, you know, a couple generations of bees that have hatched out through this, because as the bees, you know, in the brood comb, when the bees go through their pupa stage, which is when the larvae is, or the cells are capped. I got good larvae on here, by the way. When they go through that pupa phase, they actually make a cocoon, just like, you know, butterflies or other insects that go through metamorphosis. And those cocoons that get left behind cause the comb to darken. So that's why older comb is darker than the nice new white comb. Okay, he tried to sting me, didn't quite get me. We're going to give these guys a little smoke, maybe calm things down a little bit. These bees are sneaky. Now this colony being the strongest, these are the ones that I've found are most, they tend to defend their hive well, which is, they've got plenty of bees to defend with and lots of resources to defend. So that probably has something to do with it. And I've heard that stronger colonies tend to be more defensive. So, some of these bees are kind of showing that they're going to protect their hive, which I wouldn't expect them to do anything different. But they're also sneaky. A lot of times bees will sting you on the hand because that's close, but these bees like to get me on the back side of my arm or someplace. Yep, just like as I'm saying it, she did it. And I'm going to give a quick example here. So she got the stinger in right there. So the stinger is right there. If you get stung, don't grab that stinger and pull it out, but scrape it out. You can use a credit card. I use my hive tool. The reason you want to do that is because that stinger has I guess it's a gland on the end of it that, another bee here messing around, that continues to pump venom in through the stinger. And so if you grab that and squeeze it when you pull that stinger out, then you are pushing that venom in and going to have more of a reaction to the sting. So you scrape it off, get rid of that gland at the same time as the stinger, and you have less issue. So let's see if they'll let me look at this frame, and if they continue to be grouchy, we'll just let them be because they're doing all right. Okay, this is a nice heavy frame. They've got same story, cap brood, honey at the top, more honey, lots of cap brood on this one. So they are doing really well. And I don't really have too much need to keep going. We know they're doing well. And we know they don't want me here. So I'm going to go ahead and push these frames back. I'm going to take a glance at this end and see if we need to add any frames. Like I said, these frames were added not too long ago. They're fairly empty. So I don't expect I'll need to add frames, but we'll see if they have any need for new frames. But first I'm going to push these other frames back. That bee is persistent. Don't want to hurt her. I'm going to smoke myself as a little bit of protection against stings until we get this closed up, because that bee has a single-minded purpose right now, and that is to get rid of me. Empty frame, just foundation, nothing going on there. Next frame is the same story. Next frame is fairly busy. They're building out there, but they don't have much honey across the top. They're just getting started on that one. They've got good comb built out, but we've seen from the other frames, the queen is laying, they're developing brood, they're storing up honey at the top. They don't have any full frames of honey yet, but I'll be monitoring that and see how that goes, because I'd like to have at least 2 full frames of honey for them to go into winter. So in the next few weeks, if they don't start storing up full frames of honey, I may start feeding them to make sure that this hive is prepared for winter, this colony is prepared for winter. I did see this morning they were bringing in good pollen, and so they're out there finding resources, and that's a good thing. I'm looking in here right now to see if I see any hive beetles in here. These colonies, my colonies have been great about taking care of hive beetles, and when I do see beetles, it's usually in the open ends of the hive where the bees have chased them out of the rest of the hive. They, it's kind of fun to watch, actually, that when the bees are after the hive beetle, they bite them, they try to carry them out, they go after them. And I am not seeing a single beetle in there, so that's kind of remarkable and good news. Okay, so now we'll open up the other end. This is our weaker hive, and this is the one I'm more concerned about, more interested in seeing what's going on. I still have my guard bee friend following me around. So I'm curious to see what they have going on in here. How are they doing on brood? Do they still have the laying queen? And are they storing up honey? So let's see what's going on. So I'm starting out opening up the empty space here. There is a solid divider right about here that completely blocks one hive from the other. So the bees on one end can't get to the other end through the hive. They do have at each end, the dividers that I have at each end of the frames is a partial divider that has about a 3/8 inch gap at the bottom. So the bees are able to make their way under that divider to the empty space. That lets them know that there's more space to grow. That puts less pressure on them if they fill up the frames that they have to feel like they need to swarm. It also gives them a place to chase hive beetles away from their frames. So, and again, in this one, I am not seeing any hive beetles. Nope, I am seeing 3 hive beetles at the very bottom here in the corner. So I'm going to just smash there. They were all kind of hiding in the corner, and now they're gone. Go on, bee, you bother me. Smoker, there we go. Get a little smoke going. Okay. Getting a little cold. So opening up, now I actually looked in this hive a little while back. I saw a few weeks ago, I saw a strong, this hive had orientation flights, and it was, strong orientation flights, which really surprised and made me pretty happy to see that they were, the colony was doing well enough that, they were putting out new foragers. And it got me a little nervous too, because I watched the orientation flights and it looked like typical orientation flights, but sometimes orientation flights and robbing can look similar. So I started thinking later, it's like, well, was that another colony, a stronger colony, robbing this one? So I came back and checked on them later, and a little spoiler, they were doing better than I expected. In fact, they had 5 frames at that time. I went ahead and added 1 frame because they were building out those 5 pretty well. So I didn't see a lot of brood at that time, but so I'm hoping, even though it's later in the year, at least to see a good maintenance level of brood, and we'll see what they have. But that's the reason that as I pull these back, this first frame, which is the empty one that I added, doesn't look like it's been built out at all. One thing I do notice that the bees do is they will they will chew holes at the edges to be able to get back and forth between the sides. And sometimes they do in the middle as well. But other than chewing those holes, they haven't done much of anything on that frame. And, you know, I said I added a frame because they were building out. Hopefully I didn't imagine things, because the second frame doesn't have a whole lot going on either. Because the second frame is built out a little bit on this side. Don't know if you can tell the difference there, but they have a little bit of pollen in there. Other than that, there's nothing much going on that frame. Third frame, here they have pretty good honey stores. Looking on this side, they've got honey stored across the top. They've got nectar below that. I don't see any brood in here. They do have, down on the lower right, they have some larger cells, which are drone cells, kind of like the other one. They made drone cells, but I wouldn't expect them to be wanting to make any drones this time of year, so that's interesting. Honey at the top there, got nectar stored below the honey. Maybe a little bit of pollen below that, but not much going on in terms of brood there. And got one hive beetle in there. I can't really get to it. I'll let the bees take care of that one. I say their population is not what the other colonies are, but they've got good bees to cover up and work this brood. They've got cap brood here, got a little bit of honey across the top, got some pollen up there at the top left, got cap brood there in the middle, got some larvae underneath that, so that's good. I'm going to get the sun behind me where I might be able to see it reflecting off of any eggs. And I'm not seeing eggs, but depending on the light, they can be kind of hard to spot. Now this brood, by the darkness of this comb, I can tell that this is not the first cycle of brood on this comb, but or at least several of these cells have already emerged, and now they contain larvae again, so that's good. And kind of a similar story. Not as much brood on that, but that side of the frame is more towards the outside, so that's what would be expected, is that you have the larger sections of brood as you get towards the inner part of the colony. Oh, bee, you're a bother. Okay, now the queen often runs to the dark side, so I'm going to look on this side first, see if I can get an eye on her. And no luck. So what we've got here, we've got honey across the top, got some brood in the middle. It's a little patchy, but I can see there's more larvae inside and so on, so it's kind of going through cycles. A little daylight in there. I'm not spotting eggs offhand, but I can tell with the different phases of larvae in there that I don't have any concern about the queen being in there and working. If anything happened to the queen, it was very recently, and I doubt that's the case. Thought I saw where the queen might be. She was not there. So, no luck yet. We've got one more frame. All right, what do we got? We've got some beetles on this one. Don't like that. I do see bees kind of trying to chase them away, but yeah, they need to take care of that. did not see my queen, and I am seeing pretty good honey on there. I'm not seeing, the beetles have all been kind of chased to the edge of the frame. The problem with the beetles is they will get in and spoil the honey and cause it to ferment, and that's no good. It's unusable for either people or bees if that happens. But this being a weaker colony, I am seeing some pollen stored in there. This being a weaker colony, they would be more susceptible to pests like beetles. So that's not a big surprise, it's just a little bit of a concern. So that's something I'm going to be watching for. Under normal circumstances, I want the bees to take care of the beetles. And, you know, I prefer, you know, a natural approach to it. There are all sorts of ways to deal with the beetles out there. And I do have screened at the bottom of this hive. There's screened openings that provide ventilation, but the bees, if they can chase the beetles towards that screen, the bees will also fall to the bottom. So, but that's the only concern I'm seeing here. Population-wise, they seem to be doing okay. And they are storing up some honey in here, so I'm not concerned about their resources. Just concerned about the state of that honey if the beetles become too much of a problem. So I'd like to see them build up their population more to where they can get the beetles out, chase them out. As we get into cooler weather, the beetles become less of a problem. So right now I'm going to let it go, and we'll see how the bees deal with it. So, so that's the status. Nothing real earth-shaking here, which is good. You know, it would have been awful if we'd opened this up and found almost no population and all sort, you know, no brood or anything. And would have been nice to find the queen. It's always nice to find the queen, but I'm not too concerned about that as long as I know that she is working. I see the evidence of her working in there. I see larvae. I see cap brood. Didn't see any eggs, but you know, like I said, eggs are very tiny, can be hard to spot. Best time I find to spot eggs is when the sun is lower in the afternoon. You can put it right over your shoulder, shine it into that comb, and then the eggs just pop right out. So visually, that is. So anyway, the hive is doing well despite their smaller population, and I'm glad for that. So thanks for coming along. Not an exciting inspection, but I hope it was informative for you. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.